Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar, How New Cloud Options Remove Barriers to SAP Hana Migration, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Cisco. My name is Steve Paul. I'm your moderator today. We have just a few announcements before we begin. This webinar is designed to be interactive between you and our presenters, and later in the program we'll ask for your feedback. You can participate in our Q&A session by asking questions about the information presented in this webinar at any time. Just type your question into the Q&A text box located on the left-hand side of the console, and then click the Submit button. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after the presentation. Slides will advance automatically throughout the event, and you can download a PDF copy of the presentation by clicking on the resource box in the bottom left of our console. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers. If you're experiencing any technical problems, please visit our webinar help guide by clicking on the Help ? Icon on the bottom right of our console. If slides are not advancing, please press the F5 key on your keyboard to refresh your console. And now on to the presentation, How New Cloud Options Remove Barriers to SAP HANA Migration. We have 4 great speakers discussing today's topic. First will be Carl Olofsson, Research Vice President, Database Management Software Research with IDC. Next we'll hear from Jeffrey Word, PhD, Vice President of Product Strategy, Database and Technology with SAP SE. Then we'll hear from Tony Brown, Director of Cloud Alliances, SunGard Availability Services. And then finally we'll hear from Saroj Mahapatra, Customer Solution Architect with SAP Specialist with Cisco. First, we'll hear from Carl.
Thanks, Steve, and welcome everyone to today's discussion. I will be, kicking off by discussing the challenges facing businesses today as they seek to address the data-driven demands before them with the technology available. And talk about some of those technology options. My name is Carl Olofsson. I'm Research Vice President covering Database Management Software Research at IDC. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I have to say that we have reached a point in our history of this technology that is, I think, about the most exciting since we started figuring out ways to collect data, store it, and retrieve it efficiently. So the new technologies that are coming online are exciting, but they also present challenges, not only challenges in terms of, managing them logistically, but also because when you are looking at your options for how you manage data and leverage that data to make your business more successful, you have to remember that your competitor is doing the same, so that presents a certain amount of pressure to have the right technology at the right time. So we're going to start by going over the market landscape and user challenges that people face. These include rapid data growth. There are new kinds of data that are coming into the picture. We hear the term big data often used to describe the kind of technology that we use to collect that kind of data, but also even the sort of conventional older data, the medium data, I guess you might call it, is growing rapidly in volume. Big data doesn't just mean volume, and not everything that's high volume is big data. So there's a lot of high volume stuff that is just within the enterprise because you have to do more processing more quickly and more intelligently in order to be successful in competing in business. But there's also this new kind of data and lots of unorganized data that needs to be sorted out. There's competitive pressure, as I mentioned before. We have the pace of business accelerating. We have people who are potentially going to leapfrog you in your market if you're not careful and make sure that you are being just as clever in the way that you can bring the data together and execute both efficiently and opportunistically in business. So the adoption of big data has created a kind of data arms race. Now it's also important to ensure the accessibility of data. The proliferation of smart mobile devices has created 2 kinds of pressure on IT. One is, of course, that there's a much higher volume of demand from those devices for data, which means that you have to increase the power of the data center to be able to deliver that data to the devices on demand. But there's also the fact that those devices are generating data which you need to bring in and analyze and leverage to be more effective in doing business. And as the second bullet point here points out, there's also a demand for the devolution of data access to user control. This means that users want to be able to get at the data when they want it. There's no more sort of like particular batch windows or scheduled data releases or drops. They want to be able to get the data they want when they want it. And of course, those things, in addition to the already increasingly complicated picture of data marts and data warehouses and applications and so forth, has resulted in great data center complexity. And that results, because those data centers are often managed piecemeal, application by application, data warehouse by data warehouse. You have excess hardware. You have you have staff work that is, overlapping, and you have too many systems to manage, too little time, as it were. And so there's waste and inefficiency there. And also there's also a lack of business agility, because when it takes a long time for you to make the changes that you need in order to address some rising concern, that results directly in wait time for the enterprise, which means that it can't respond as quickly to business needs. And on top of all of that, there's legal and regulatory issues. When you bring in more data, there's more liability. You bring in data from social media, you bring in data from your mobile devices, you're bringing in data that may have information which, because of some regulation, because of some law, or perhaps because of some contract that you have with your customers or with your with people to whom you have a legal obligation, you have to protect that data, control it, make sure that that the right data gets to the right people and not to the wrong people. And at the same time, the highly complex combinations make it all the more difficult to provide relevant results to users in a timely manner. So the challenge, as I said, the accelerating pace of business. Amazon started this. Gosh, it seems like Amazon's always been with us, but it hasn't really. But for about the past 10 years, they've been putting our feet to the fire, driving us to be faster, leaner, more efficient, and rise our volume of data processing, killing overnight batch windows in many cases, forcing us to be 24/7. Online banking has reduced float time, which used to be a way that companies could it was almost like having free credit for like a minute, an hour, a day, depending on how long it took to do a money transfer. Now it's instant. That's gone. Online trading happens instantly. Globalization, no batch windows, as I said. So everything is just going so quickly, and it's just creating all the more pressure on the enterprise to do more and more quickly. So we have big data technologies that have come along. They're introducing a new class of data that we're collecting in large volumes, processing, organizing, sorting, formatting into a useful state, bringing it into the enterprise, and we need to be able to handle all that in a timely manner. The big data introduces new challenges, of course, but it also brings opportunity. Because we can collect kinds of data we could never have imagined in the past and use that. And even though we've been talking about things like social media data for quite some time, I can tell you from my own observation in this space, and I think others would verify, enterprises are just beginning to learn how to leverage social media data to their advantage. We've been talking about it for a few years, but now people are actually starting to do it. This all leads to what we call a third platform. This is something IDC identified a couple of years ago. The first platform, of course, being the sort of back office mainframe style or mini computer with dumb terminals and that kind of thing, running processes that and transactions that nobody saw except the people who interacted with them directly. Then you had the second platform, which is client server, and you had GUI interfaces, and you broadened out the access of data at the end, at the very edge, on the end of the second platform, we started to see web access and the creation of websites that expose some functions to general users through their web browsers. But that was just the entree into the third platform, where now we have 24/7 access to data, not only through web browsers but through apps on mobile devices. In fact, people are increasingly using mobile devices more than apps, more than websites to access the data, and they expect those apps to work and to be functional wherever they can get a Wi-Fi connection or wherever they can get an internet connection. There's the impact of social business, which is where we're taking the social media lessons learned and applying them to the way that our business applications work, so that we can enable greater informal collaboration amongst employees and who can work together. They can create sort of temporary groups that just sort of form and dissolve to solve particular business problems. We're employing big data and analytics. I started to talk about big data before, but we're employing that as part of the third platform. And then there's the cloud, where we're now able to either move or extend our IT operations into cloud services, which is very exciting because it gives us a dimension that includes the ability to manage cost while having a very large expansion space where we can move processing and we can manage it in a way that ensures that we pay for what we use and not have to sort of build up a huge stockpile of hardware capacity for the high watermarks in our business year. And around that we have robotics, natural interfaces, 3D printing, Internet of Things, cognitive systems, and next gen security. Those are in some cases placing demands in the sense of creating more work, and in other cases creating demands in the sense of requiring us to be more careful in the way that we manage our data. So these things are what is driving some of the technologies that I'll be talking about today, especially in-memory database technology, because databases can't be slow. We can't be waiting on databases. A latency that is above a few milliseconds is simply unacceptable, even for complex analytic queries these days, given the applications and systems that are being driven by that data. And it's useful to note, and we'll show you a little data that backs this up, that SAP application customers are looking to SAP Hana to deliver this capability within their environments. Okay, so transactions and analytics, they are not the analytics that you do is in no way a real-time function in the sense that you're looking at current state of play data, and I think most of you know that, or all of you know that, and you're probably saying, yeah, sure, tell us something we don't know. But the reasons for this are also obvious, but I'll run through them quickly anyway. It's because the data needs to be taken from your transactional applications. Typically, it's passed through some ETL layer that transforms the data into the target format and merges it together and validates it and does basic quality control, and then pushes it into the data warehouse. That process can take anywhere from a day to a week or more before you have data that you can analyze in the data warehouse. And also, they are uncoordinated because historically we've used two different kinds of database. One for transaction processing, which don't handle analytic queries very well. In fact, often what we do is to speed the transactions. We don't have secondary indexes, right? So doing random queries is generally considered bad or is actually blocked, forbidden. Instead, you do them in the data warehouse, which has a schema that's designed specifically for doing analytic queries, and it works fine for that. But the databases are, they're special purpose. They often use special technology. So these two kinds of technologies are different. And as a result, that's why we need to have that ETL layer that intermediates and that transforms the data from the transactional form to the analytic form. What we really want to get to is something that I've been calling for the past number of years the real-time enterprise, which is where we can actually see the current data as it is, and we can use it for all the things we used to use it for, plus a whole bunch of new things. So we have, for instance, we have the classic transactional data. If you see on this diagram, it's coming in from those green disks, but it's passing through an in-memory database, which is also absorbing data from Hadoop and from the data warehouse, so that it can generate real-time business intelligence to help us guide our businesses. We have streaming data that may be driving our business applications as well, and in some cases, well, not really yet, but future direction is to be actually able to use the real-time business intelligence to influence or drive the transactions, the business actions themselves automatically, as well as simply better informing our employees. And of course, still in the mix is the data warehouse. That doesn't go away. Hadoop is there not only for the purposes that you see in the graphic, but also for other analyses that we want to do. So we need to have that good integration between Hadoop and the in-memory database that's at the center of this picture. So the question then becomes, well, why hadn't we done this in the past? What's changed? Why now? And the answer is that we've developed some interesting new database technology that enables us to create, for one thing, much more optimal analytic processing through something called hybrid columnar compression with vector processing, which all the major database vendors, including SAP, have leveraged in their systems. And those databases may be either intimately connected with or the same as the operational database, and the strategies that different vendors use vary. In the case of SAP, it happens to be the same database. Now, why we can do this is because memory is getting cheaper, networks are getting faster, we have processors that are enhanced to accelerate core functions necessary for analytic queries, such as something called SIMD, a single instruction multiple data, which is at the core of vector processing, enables us to basically multiply by many times the speed with which we can perform core functions in analytic processing. And as a result of all this, flash is the new disk, RAM is the new flash, and the processor cache, where we push data for analysis, is the new RAM. In other words, you need to think of these things as accelerating in terms of their utility. So disk, spinning disk increasingly becomes, in this new world, more like the recovery platform, not the actual live data platform. So that being the case, it's important to note the difference between disk-optimized and memory-optimized databases. Disk-optimized databases are they're what we use because what we had to use in the past, because it's the only place we could put lots of data. But they involve complex maintenance operations, and you have to know how to map the data to the disk efficiently, and you have to know how to tune your database very well. You underutilize the disk. You spread data across the disk so that you can retrieve it more quickly. And data change requires schema change, and schema change often requires a physical reorganization of the database, which kills your agility. As opposed to these things, memory-based data management, much simpler operations. If you're using the columnar approach I was describing, you don't need indexes, so you don't have to maintain indexes as you do transaction processing. There's no disk-based tuning. There's much less administration because you don't have that whole layer that you have to worry about. The disk is just there to help you in case of recovery. And it delivers rapid data management and retrieval. So the in-memory database is critical for the real-time enterprise. So the SAP Hana in-memory platform, of which you're going to hear a lot more soon, is an example of this in-memory capability. It's a relational database that is optimized for managing the data entirely in memory, overcomes the issues that disk-based databases have. The product is very popular with SAP analytic application customers and users of SAP Business Warehouse, and we're starting to see increasing use of the product with Business Suite customers as well. And this chart shows you the growth rates. Now, it's the thing to bear in mind here is that, for one thing, the SAP columns include both SAP Hana and the other SAP databases, which are ASE and IQ, and Anywhere. So if you were to look at HANA only, the bars would be much taller. But even as they are, you can see that they're much taller than their competitors. The main reason for that is that there's been a large shift underway by SAP users from their older disk-based systems to SAP HANA, as users are looking to take advantage of those speed and simplicity capabilities that are being delivered by this technology. So in conclusion, businesses are seeking to leverage data-driven decisions to drive business value and gain real competitive advantage. They need to be able to do this in the moment. That's the key phrase to come away from this with, in the moment. You don't want, it always is important to be able to do planning, obviously. So you look at a week's worth of data to plan next week. You look at a quarter's worth of data to plan next quarter. You look at years of data to plan the next few years, and that's fine. But the part that's always been missing is that in-the-moment data, being able to make a decision while the customer's standing right in front of you, while the product is being shipped, while you're executing a logistical operation. You want to be able to make smart decisions at each stage. And so the need for real-time analytic functionality is becoming a top priority. We know from the survey work we've done that organizations have only gradually become aware of the advantage that they can gain by leveraging this technology. And SAP applications have become the cornerstone of many organizations' business operations. And so if you're a SAP user, and I assume you are if you're on this call, then you are going to you should be very interested in how SAP HANA can help you leverage the SAP applications to gain better agility and speed. Ensuring your SAP HANA environment is always on, is always protected, is immensely important. The application assumes an increasingly, I would say, key role in business environments, driving not only the back office processes that it's always driven, it's driving your customer interactions, it's driving your operations in real time, and all of that requires a lot of speed and agility, and that's where we're heading with in-memory database. And the SAP folks are here to tell you how they are going to deliver those kinds of capabilities with SAP HANA. And so with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jeff Word, who's going to go over how SAP HANA is going to deliver those benefits to you.
Excellent.
Jeff?
Thanks a lot, Carl. Really appreciate that. Phenomenal setup. So that'll make my job a little bit easier. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jeff Word. I'm the Vice President of Product Strategy for Database and Technology at SAP. And I've actually been involved with HANA since the first drawing on the whiteboard over 10 years ago now. And so what I want to do is give you a little bit about that history, and Carl has done a phenomenal job of talking through why this was needed, so I'll jump a little bit forward. But basically, SAP saw 10 years ago everything that Carl was just talking about. We started to see that happening about 10 years ago. We saw this huge influx in data with all of these different things from RFID and social and big data and things like that. And we were looking at the SAP systems at the time of our customers, and we realized that the disk-based databases underneath them just weren't going to cut it much longer. They'd run into a fundamental law of physics, the laws of motion. You just can't spin a disk faster. And getting into that world, we went to the existing database vendors that worked with SAP, and we told them, your databases suck. They're going to have to get better. Build us a new one. And they all told us, no way. And when you got down to it, what we realized was they were trapped in the innovator's dilemma. They would have to slaughter their cash cows of the disk-based databases in order to build a next-generation database. And once we realized that our future and the future of our relationship with our customers and providing value to them was going to be severely negatively impacted by the lack of innovation from the existing database vendors, we had to take that into our own hands. And so SAP decided to innovate ourselves out of this problem. and create an entirely new database architecture that would eliminate those deficiencies and constraints of the disk-based world and really reunite the transactional and analytical aspects of data into a single data platform. And that's really what HANA has delivered. And so if you take a look really quickly, HANA is a platform. It is not just a database. From one perspective, it's a database like you've seen from every other vendor. It's got SQL. You can store things in rows and columns. It does all the traditional things that you would expect from the outside for a database to do. But what really distinguishes HANA is what's inside it, what's inside the black box. And because of this in-memory architecture, because we designed it from scratch, from the first line of code, to be much more than a database. It is a data platform that has all sorts of capabilities in it that can never be achieved in a regular disk-based database. Specifically, the engines that we have inside of HANA that allow us to process any kind of data. We have a geospatial engine inside there. We have a calculation engine that can execute massive algorithms natively inside the database in the data. We have an application server inside the database. You've never heard of a database that had an application server because nobody had built it until we did. And the only reason we could do that is because of the way that we're able to structure and manage data natively inside the RAM and memory allows us to do some amazing things that are just physically impossible to do in any other type of database. And so because we built this data platform, we built it from the beginning for ourselves. As the world's largest business application developers, we build the software that runs the whole bloody planet. And if the SAP software doesn't work right, everybody's business stops working that day. And so we know better than anybody else how to build massively complex applications that can manage massively complex companies. But at the same time, we know what the demands of the database are for that. And so we built this for our needs, in addition to being completely open and usable for any type of application out there, not just an SAP application. But in essence, if it's good enough for SAP, it's good enough for anybody out there. If it can run the SAP Business Suite, it's great for any application. But moving forward, what we also decided was this isn't just for SAP. Obviously, we have re-architected and rebuilt and built entirely new generations of SAP applications on top of this HANA platform. But because of the things that we've done and the capabilities we've built into HANA, it's available for any application. I literally have taken middle school students over a weekend and had them build their very first SAP HANA application with nothing more than a little bit of Red Bull and pizza. It's not hard. If you can write in SQL, you can work with HANA. But it really takes a level of understanding and capability to really be able to take advantage of all of these amazing things underneath HANA. And that's really what makes HANA distinct and very, very simple to use, is that once you understand that you don't have to do all these stupid things that Carl talked about from the old database worlds. You don't have to do indexes. You don't have to do materialized views. You don't have to manage the data on the disk and where it's going to be and optimize it and do this performance tuning. That physically cannot even be done in a HANA database. It's as fast as it's ever going to be. You can't slow it down, and if it does need to be faster, you add more CPUs, and we scale infinitely, linearly, based on how many CPUs you put on it. And quite interestingly, we don't charge by that CPU metric either. We love CPUs. We want to be able to use them all in parallel all the time. And so HANA really is a very different way to think about using data. And because of that, you can build some insanely cool, innovative applications on top of it that truly physically are impossible to build in any type of other database architecture. The really unique thing about HANA, and Carl touched on this, but I'll go into a little bit more detail, is we completely eliminated this false choice that companies have to make between doing transactions in a database and doing analytics in a database. When you look at it, the entire reason that OLAP as a concept exists is because you couldn't do really heavy-duty analytical workloads on a database that was simultaneously doing very heavy-duty inserts and transactions. The databases, the way you had to structure them are completely different because of the nature of the reads versus the writes. And when your transactional system, such as SAP, is pumping out massive amounts of transactions, that's your business. You can't afford to mess around with that. So you ETL everything over to something else in a big data warehouse. You tweak that a million different ways to make it performant, and then you can finally figure out what you did. And that latency between the two prevents any company from becoming a real-time business. We think that's a false choice. It's just stupid. The only reason you have that entire architecture on the side to do analytics is because of the deficiencies of the disk-based database under your transactional system. If you stick HANA underneath that transactional system, you no longer have those deficiencies and constraints, and therefore we can merge OLAP and OLTP into the exact same platform. And that really is the beauty of HANA. You can do billions and billions of reads per second per core at the same time as doing millions and millions of transactions per second per core on the same single table. There's only one copy of the data in HANA. And milliseconds after a transaction is recorded by your transactional system, it is instantly available without any extra effort to all of your analytical applications. That's really the big difference here, is by getting rid of those constraints of the disk-based database and eliminating any of the penalties you pay for optimizing your disk for writes or for reads. Now HANA is optimized for both, and it's infinitely performant. That's really what changes the game when it comes to SAP. And because of that, we've actually been able to build an entirely new suite of applications called SAP S4 HANA, right? S4 is simple, fourth generation, and it only runs on HANA because there is quite honestly no other database on the planet that we could have built these new applications on. And that really is what changes the game, I think, from an SAP customer perspective, is now you have all of the power you could ever need to do all of the different types of things you need to do with any kind of data in a single platform from SAP. And all of our applications are built on it, and it's incredibly easy for you to build and extend and adopt applications that weren't run by SAP on top of the same platform. In addition, it's tens of thousands of times faster and more simple. And just real quickly, let me touch on this because this has been a journey, and if you're an SAP customer listening in, you've heard about HANA for several years now. But when we came out with HANA, because we didn't want it to be disruptive, because we didn't want it to be too much of an effort for our customers to adopt, we started it off as a very simple sidecar or a very simple, standalone thing. And that was just a way for us to get that value out to our customers without causing any disruption to their business. But as we've progressed and more of the portfolio have been either ported to or rebuilt for HANA, now we've actually gone beyond that, and we built from scratch an entirely new business suite, the successor to ECC and R3, called S4 HANA. And this was built entirely based on HANA to take advantage of it natively out of the box, right? And do amazing things that could never be done in original, the old school databases. And so with the delivery of S4 HANA earlier this year, we've completed that roadmap of transitioning from the old world of applications that were built on old disk-based databases and moved into a new world with S4 HANA that was built natively to run on this next generation in-memory platform from SAP. And that is the platform going forward that all SAP customers are going to migrate to take them forward for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years. And we, again, could have only done that with HANA. But that was what we did from the beginning. Was our plan was to deliver S4 HANA. And we, like I said, if you've heard about HANA in different scenarios up until now, we've actually been always working towards this goal. And just to give you a quick update, HANA is the fastest growing product in the history of the technology industry of software. We have currently today over 7,000 customers. We've got over 2,000 startups building their businesses on HANA. BW powered by HANA is over 2,400 customers. And just even though we've only released it at the beginning of this year, we already have 900 customers on S4 HANA. This is actually amazing adoption. and it's going to do nothing but increase exponentially as the majority of SAP's customer base begin and continue that transition to S/4HANA. I'll skip a little bit about the customers that are on this. You can see on the slides, but Carl wasn't joking. The response is absolutely amazing. When customers get this in and up and running, it is game-changing for them. If you want to hear some more of those stories, you can listen to a podcast I host with the actual customers that you see on the screen talking about this. It's called The Hana Effect on iTunes. And we talk about the different types of business impact this is happening, and it's truly amazing. Once you eliminate that latency that Carl mentioned, once you get to becoming a real-time digital business, the things that you can do from a competitive and an operational standpoint are absolutely mind-blowing. And so I encourage you guys to listen to more customer stories about that, or go to hana.sap.com, and you can find a lot of great information about those. And with that, I want to leave you with, this is all great, and the future is bright, and there's so many amazing things that the SAP customers are going to be able to take advantage of. The real challenge, and this is what I hear from customers all over the world, is how do I start? This all sounds great, but we've got to keep the lights on and the trains moving on time. How am I going to justify this? How am I going to find that use case? And the best and most simple and most cost-effective way is to do a pilot. Engage, talk to your SAP sales rep. They have an army of people that can help you guys get that first project done. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be expensive. And it doesn't have to take very long. Most of these projects take a couple of weeks to do a pilot project. Usually they start off in the finance department, so that's a good place to start looking. But that's a great way to start. And also just think about it as your traditional roadmap for upgrades. You're going to start getting HANA in the box with a lot of things from SAP. And it's a pretty easy transition technically. The real critical issue is you have to look at all these things from a business perspective. How can having real-time insight and real-time capabilities in a transactional and analytical world change the game for this part of my business? You identify a few of those, you do a quick pilot for it, you engage the business users on it, and from there you start building momentum. And from what we've seen at our customers, it is a very fast project. And more importantly, it is a very fast progression from that project to the next one, the next one. Once the business users in your company see the value of HANA, they won't stop asking for it. It's a pretty amazing bell curve that people go up, and they do it very, very quickly. So engage with your SAP account team, and you can learn very quickly of how to get up and running on this. And with that, I'll say thank you, and I'm going to hand this over to my colleague we're going to hand this over to Tony Brown from SunGard to talk to you about how they actually help deliver this in the cloud. Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. So, guys, everybody can hear Jeff's passion in his talking points, and that really echoes kind of what we're seeing as well in the marketplace. Again, my name is Tony Brown. I'm the Director of our Cloud Alliances for SunGard Availability Services. And to Jeff's point, the adoption rate for HANA is growing exponentially. If you look at our customers' landscape, 3-4 years ago, HANA was, a conversation point, but really wasn't sure how that applied to their business needs. Now what we're seeing in our customers' landscape is just the opposite of that. That is a full roadmap around SAP HANA, how it affects their business, and how they can scale to it. So all good talking points, Jeff. Appreciate it. So what I thought I would do is just touch on a couple points around what Jeff was highlighting around HANA and the adoption rate. One of the things we're seeing in the marketplace is obviously moving to a cloud environment from a traditional on-premise landscape environment. There's definitely benefits and advantages of moving to a SAP HANA cloud, and we're finding that with all our customers. We're finding that cloud solutions provide a faster SAP application deployment, whether it's greenfield, and what I mean by that is net new SAP customers coming to the table, whether it's around their business suite or business suite for the full ERP package, or maybe it's just analytics that they're buying from SAP for the first time. or a migration process. So if you have an existing SAP landscape moving to a HANA platform, we're finding that the faster application deployment really is one of the advantages of moving to a cloud environment. We've had situations where we're able to really load up a environment for a QA and test for an SAP customer within a few weeks, almost to a few days, depending on the landscape. So faster application deployment is really one of the benefits we see, making a cloud move easier, not easy, but easier in that aspect. Another thing we're seeing in the market and with our customers is really the increased efficiency within their organization. So really what it allows us to do, and I'll kind of go into it here in a couple slides, is improve the IT staff productivity and really reduce that time lost due to downtime. So we're seeing a lot of conversations around how the benefits of moving to a cloud as opposed to supporting it on-premise with regards to efficiency. And really, most cases, lower the cost of your overall cost. I think that's kind of a caveat for any SAP deal is how do we lower the cost of migrating to a cloud environment. So what we're really seeing is our companies reducing the spend on hardware, they're reducing the spend on software, and really every other data center related cost, whether it's network connectivity, security protocols, whatever it may be. By moving to a cloud environment, which I'll kind of get into details here in a couple slides, it really drives home the benefits of why companies are considering moving to a cloud. And then what's unique to SunGard, I think, is really the improved security features around the application. One of the things we bring to the table is high availability around the production environments, and again, I'll get into that here in another slide, and really the DR capability. So companies have to think, okay, yeah, we're going to think about moving our production to an environment in the cloud, but what's our DR strategy? What happens if something goes wrong? What's our recovery strategy? And that's something that we take to heart as well, and I'll address that here in a second. So with any SAP system, there's multiple drivers and challenges with any company looking to adopt a cloud environment solution, and SAP HANA is no different. So some of the main drivers, and these could be fairly obvious to some, but I thought I'd highlight a couple of them just to kind of reiterate what we're seeing in the marketplace when we're talking to our customers in the field. Obviously, some of the business drivers is ongoing pressure around price and cost. I think with any IT conversation, whether you're considering to move to HANA or you're considering to buy HANA from a greenfield perspective, the pressure on the price and cost has to always be part of the formula. So we address that as well here in a couple slides. The time to market, it really goes back to what I said on the first slide was the faster application deployment. A lot of times customers want to have their environments up and running within a set amount of time, sometimes between 90 and 120 days. We have processes in place that actually allows us to do that based on working with Cisco and SAP to really help roll out an SAP environment for HANA fairly quickly. I think some of the technical challenges that we're seeing is I think when you're talking to customers, and I think every company is guilty of this, is the legacy applications that they have in-house today. And how do they connect to their SAP environment? I don't think I've run into any customer in the field that doesn't have some sort of legacy system, whether it's a homegrown system that an IT person created when they first got hired, or just an outdated version of a software package. All those has to be considered when you're thinking about moving to a cloud environment and how do we connect to a HANA platform. So we take that in consideration. That's really one of our strong suits is how we develop our hybrid solutions. And then obviously the wide range of skill sets required to maintain the application. So, one of the key features that we bring to the table is really our skill sets around supporting the SAP HANA application in the cloud. So we provide obviously the network, the connectivity, but we also provide the managed services around that. So and that really alleviates a lot of IT constraints from a challenge perspective. Security concerns, obviously that's huge today. We take that into consideration with regards to our audits and our security audits we do in our data centers to really help the business question. Okay, if I put my system in your SAP HANA cloud, how do I know it's secure? And we have deep expertise within house in security protocols, which I can get into more detail. really to make sure that we're living up to what we say we can live up to with regards to certain SLAs. So the business drivers that we're really seeing, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this in the market around cloud adoption, is really the OpEx versus CapEx spend. A lot of times when customers are thinking about moving to a HANA environment, they have to think about, okay, do I have to buy a dedicated appliance? Do I have to put it in our own data center? There's obviously a CapEx concern. What we do here, obviously, in a cloud environment is turn the tables a little bit, obviously. We turn it into more of an OpEx model, so it's coming out of your operation budget on a monthly basis in a virtualized environment. So we're allowed to scale the environments from a price point perspective a lot more than we were able to do from a dedicated appliance perspective. I would say that's probably the biggest driver in a lot of our conversations is the OpEx versus CapEx. Obviously, moving to a cloud environment for HANA, it's improved service levels, quicker time to market. One of the things that I think is a key feature is really pay per use model. So we only charge you for the memory and the compute that you use or needed to run your business. But the good thing is here you can scale up, scale down as needed. So it's not a fixed rate depending on how your business grows or contracts over a certain amount of time. So SAP Cloud HANA benefits. So I'm not going to read these every bullet, but I think the takeaway here is really what our customers are telling us around moving to an SAP HANA Cloud. The ability really to bring resources up and down as needed. So once you decide to migrate to HANA, in our virtualized environment, we have the ability to, obviously, like I said earlier, was to really just scale to your growth projections, right? So whether you want to add multiple VMs, multiple compute, multiple storage, we have the ability to scale up, scale down based on your business needs, or even the time of year based on your seasonal needs, which I think is a huge advantage. The other thing is providing a more complete IT solution. So again, even though for this conversation we're talking about SAP HANA and some of the benefits of moving to the cloud, keep in mind that that's one component of an IT strategy, right? A lot of times is how do I connect my legacy systems? How do I include maybe a third-party web commerce system? All those have to be in consideration, and what we bring to the table with our offering is a complete hybrid solution. So whether it's a standalone HANA deployment or a complete hybrid solution, we're able to scale back and forth based on our cloud environments to accommodate those needs. And then really, we follow, Jeff and SAP's industry best practices with regards to rolling out any SAP offering, whether it's non-HANA or HANA environments. We have a combination of both, and we follow their best protocols and best practices, which I'll talk about on the next slide from a certification perspective. So one thing I did want to make mention, I think that is a differentiator, and it's something to think about when you are thinking about moving or migrating to a HANA environment, is what's that provider's high availability HA or disaster recovery strategy DR. So I really do believe we're one of the few vendors out there that has a high availability option of 99.95 SLA around HANA production, which is above industry standards. So if your organization has a high availability, it can't be down more than a certain percentage of time throughout the month, this might be a perfect solution of why we want to move to a cloud that has a high availability option. In addition to that, a lot of times customers are going to ask, what's our recovery strategy? Okay, we have HANA production, we understand the cloud environment, we understand the security protocols, but what's our recovery solution around HANA? So we're one of the few vendors that actually has a HANA DR offering as well embedded into our production offering. So whether it's a standalone offering around recovery or it's part of the overall production strategy, we have a pretty aggressive 4-hour RTO and 1-hour RPO via VMware that we partner with to offer that. So I think that's a differentiator. So when you're thinking about moving to HANA in the cloud, those are some of the questions you might want to ask the provider. What's your high availability strategy? What's your DR strategy? How does that relate to our overall IT strategy if we move our environments to the cloud? So again, those are all things that we want to discuss when you're talking to a provider. Again, we can start small, we can start very large. It really just depends, and I keep echoing this. It really just depends on what your IT strategy is and what your growth strategy is. I mean, do you project growing 5 to 10% over the next 3 to 4 years? Well, we take that into consideration. We can scale to that or scale back to that in our environments on a monthly basis if you guys need that. So again, high availability in DR is probably a good thing to consider when you're talking to a potential provider. And just one last slide, I think, and I kind of throw this out there as just an FYI. I think as you look at SAP HANA cloud providers, you want to make sure they have these certifications from SAP. So from a SunGard availability perspective, we're very much in line with SAP from a go-to-market. We work with them on a daily basis to make sure our platforms are meeting best practices. The data centers are audited every 24 months by SAP Direct to make sure we have the right certifications. Obviously, the certifications you want to look for when you're thinking about moving to a HANA in the cloud platform is, are they SAP hosting certified? Are they SAP cloud certified? And really the caveat here is, are they SAP HANA operational certified? So all three distinctions have different criteria around it. But again, SunGard Availability Services has gone down that road to make sure that we have all three distinctions. All three of our data centers for HANA are audited by SAP for best practices, and really that we're meeting the requirements to make sure our customers are up and running when they need it to be. So again, high level, I think I touched on some of the benefits SunGard brings to the table. And really one of the things that I hope Suraj brings to mention here is all this is powered by Cisco. We couldn't have done this without Cisco as a strategic partner. Their platform was one of the ones that we decided to go after and really structure our go-to-market around. And they're an industry leader around that. And I'm going to let Suraj kind of echo some of those high points and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, this is Suraj Mukhapatra. I'm a SAP specialist from Cisco SAP Center of Excellence. And to Tony's point, I'm going to cover the business value with Cisco UCS for SAP HANA. So let's see what's happening with the data center market. Integrated infrastructure continues to gain momentum. Gartner predicts that by end of 2015, we have 35% of all servers will be shipped as integrated systems. So according to IDC, what you heard today, Cisco is a leading supplier of integrated systems for enterprise clouds that will also support seamless mobility in a hybrid cloud environment. As you see on the slide here, Cisco UCS enables SAP HANA. Foundation, let's look at the foundation for scalable data centers. These components, what you see on the slide, they simplify operations, maximize ROI, and accelerate the infrastructure deployment. Let's start with Cisco UCS. It stands for Unified Computing System. UCS architecture is optimized for virtualization and cloud, providing superior performance, efficient scalability, and high availability. UCS integrates server, network, and storage resources into a single virtual system with superior scalability. UCS simplifies operations and deployment using stored configuration policies like service profiles. We call from Cisco side, we call it service profiles to instantly and consistently provision new infrastructure. So let's see, the next thing is UCS designed for programmability through open APIs. For fast and easy ordering, Cisco offers pre-configured UCS solution accelerator packs for 3 common scenarios. The first one is storage incentive configuration for applications like big data, and a mixed workload configuration appropriate for enterprise environment, and a high density configuration appropriate for massive scale out and high availability. So the next component, what you see there, is the Nexus switching. It's the core part of the infrastructure. It provides a standard entry point into the rest of the data center network. Cisco has storage partners, and we support all of them. EMC, NetApp, IBM, Pure, Nimble. And that these vendors are certified with HANA, and we are using their storage right now. Cisco takes security, very, very seriously, and that's our next point. And we automate templates for security policies that extend from UCS into the network to enforce the policies required for the application. And the next thing is very important, which is SEI, which is the SDN part of the solution from Cisco side. We can program the network infrastructure. Policies related to the application will be integrated into a controller, enabling the application behavior to automatically drive the infrastructure configuration. So let's look at, like we have been talking to several customers every day, right? And what is their issue and how Cisco addresses those issues. So when we talk to the application users, and as some of you have seen that, or experienced, that they want the development, test, and production kind of environment within minutes. And they are taking right now days, and they're disappointed about it. So they're asking Cisco how we can help them about that. Then when we talk to the CIOs out there, they need a fully virtualized environment, with high flexibility but low TCO. So they want fully virtualized environment but bare metal performance. And they want less devices. And less, with that, they will get less power consumption and make IT greener. And when we talk to the SAP basis admins, their requirement is different. And they want to reduce their, the footprint of the data center. They want less complexity. They want the management effort to be simple. And, when we talk to them about daily basis, what's going on in their data center, they say that, we have to deal with more adapters, switches to configure, right? And they want latency, interruption, and CPU cycles. And when you look at that, when they're moving, copying one database to another in a SAP environment, you do that, and that time it's taking a longer time, right? They want to make the HA and DR simple, right? And automate, pretty much automation, right? That's what they want from here. And with Cisco, so what we do is we use different Cisco automation tool to address that. And basically the stateless computing, where you give identity to the system. The system don't have identity, so you give identity to the system using the service profiles, what I mentioned. So we'll be able to provide or meet customers' requirement using all those tools we have from Cisco side. So let's look at the next slide. That's the market data from Cisco, for the Cisco Unified Computing System. So if you look at the revenue, we are number one, in American revenue market share in x86 blade business. 41,000 plus customers we have, for Cisco UCS. We are top 5 server vendor, and we have 3 billion plus data center annualized revenue run rate right now. More than 85% of all Fortune 500 customers have invested in UCS. 3,700 plus UCS channel partners, and 100 worldwide record performance benchmark to date. So let's look at what we heard from IDC. So IDC recently did an interview with 12 Cisco UCS customers, and that's worldwide. And what they found out is if the customers who are using Cisco UCS in their data center, they have 64% reduction in staff for server management, 84% reduction in staff time for server deployment. And you know how important it is when you are deploying HANA, how fast you want to deploy. So by reducing that time, they're basically saving a lot of money. So 96% reduction in staff time due to hardware downtime, and downtime is important for a lot of customers, as you know. And 368% 3-year ROI. They have seen 4.79 million average 5-year business benefit and 10-month payback period. So now you understand why customers are really taking interest in Cisco UCS as a converged architecture. With that, I would go ahead and open up for answer and turn it over to Steve Paul.
Okay, thanks very much, Saroj. Excellent presentations by all. Unfortunately, we're not going to have any time for our audience Q&A, so we'd like to first ask if you could please fill out a feedback form and submit this for us, and we will be getting back to you with responses to your questions over the next few business days. So we want to thank you all for participating. It was an excellent presentation. And again, for more information, you can also refer to the URL that is appearing before you. We want to thank you for attending today's webinar, How New Cloud Options Remove Barriers to SAP HANA Migration, hosted by SAP Insider and presented by Cisco and SunGard Availability Services. Shortly after this live event, we'll send you an email reminder to access this presentation on demand. And on behalf of our guests, Carl Olofsson of IDC, Jeffrey Word of SAP SE, Tony Brown of SunGard Availability Services, and Saroj Mahapatra of Cisco, we want to thank you for your time and have a great day.